There we go. We should be good to go. Have a great meeting, everyone.
Okay, perfect. So welcome, everybody. Today is Monday, September 18th, and this is our general finance meeting. I will be chairing. And before we start, I want to send on behalf of council our condolences to Chief Hill and his family on the passing of his uncle. And so he will be out of office for the rest of the week. So let's start in with today's agenda. Is there any additions or deletions from today's meeting? Seeing none, do I have someone who will move? Audrey, second by Greg. All in favor? Agenda is carried. Okay, we have one presentation this morning. We would like to invite our guests, the Stump Hall Committee, up to the front. So you can make your presentation in regards to getting support for, I believe it's your driveway at the cemetery. So welcome, Ron. Welcome, Rin. Okay, so when you're at the mic, just click on one person speaks at a time. Just click on your mic and the community will hear you and see you up on the screen.
Okay, the reason why Stump Hall Committee is here today is to try and get some money or finances so we can do some upgrades to our cemetery, the Stump Hall. I'll just read what I have here. Okay, it's for laneway improvements and expansion. The Friends of Stump Hall Cemetery Committee is requesting financial support for laneway improvements and expansion. The expansion is for the safety and accessibility of community members to attend interments and visit grave sites for their family and friends who have passed on. The Friends of Stump Hall have established some phases of improvements and have been working on maintenance and improvements over the past few years. The Friends of Stump Hall Cemetery Committee have done fundraising, applied for grants from Six Nations Economic Development Trust Fund, received donations from the community, and reinvested an original trust fund at a better rate of return as it is depleted considerably over the years and would not be able to continue to maintain the cost of the cemetery, cost of care of the cemetery. The fees of the plots were increased to assist in covering costs for maintenance such as grass cutting, snow removal, grave attendance, meeting to conform plot, opening, closing, and graves, etc. The Friends of Stump Hall, however, the Friends of Stump Hall Cemetery Committee are volunteers and receive no payment for our time. The custodian is paid, however, the hours submitted on a timesheet, which are less than the actual hours he spends attending to the cemetery. Stump Hall Cemetery has no affiliation to any religious denominations to access any resources. It is open to all Six Nations members for burial, and expansion is inevitable. The cost of the laneway improvements and expansion without assistance will take years for our committee to save up for, and the deterioration of the laneway will continue until then, making the costs increase. We had obtained 3 quotes from local contractors. Upon review, the quotes obtained, we have selected Bang Level Excavating to install an improved laneway and a turnaround area. Some of the aspects in determining the contract were the size of the road or laneway, size of culvert, the expansion of the base surface of the recycled asphalt, as the lowest quote did not provide this. A safety concern of entry and exit point of the cemetery would be addressed in relocating it further down the property instead of along the hill, which is dangerous to traffic flow. The quotes obtained were from Hills Construction, which was 23,580. Dan Elliott Construction, which was 48,790. And Bang Level Construction, which was 41,850. And your time is consideration of this request is appreciated.
Thank you very much. And so at this time, I open it up to, or Ron, did you want to say something?
The reason we went with the recycled asphalt is easier maintaining with the snow removal, because with just gravel, it's you tend to take up a lot of stone when you're pushing the snow. And when recycled asphalt is laid down, it tends to bond to itself, and so there's hardly any that comes off the surface.
Thank you for that. And it's great to hear that you actually secured funding for other things that you're doing, as in you said, indicate or marking the graves, right? So that's good. And you'll be sharing that with other churches and places in the community?
Yeah, it's called what is it? A penetrating machine.
Penetrating the machine.
It locates graves, which we have, we're trying to get all that in order to. There will be an expansion because more and more people, are passing on.
So thank you. I see some hands, Sherry Lynn, then Audrey.
I know in the past that I helped Salvation Army to the laneway to get to the grave sites. So I'm okay with passing this because they need to go see their loved ones. And that was the concern that was with the Salvation Army, and it was done. So I'm not sure how much it cost or whatever for the Salvation Army, but I think I'm in favor for it, because that was the concerns that the community members had, because they couldn't get back there and they were elderly, and it was just too rough for them to get back there. So I just wanted to share that. And that was just probably maybe before COVID that was done.
Thank you, Sherry Lynn. So you're moving that?
Yes, I'll move that.
Okay. Audrey?
I'll second it. I think it's a really good initiative because we have a lot of family members buried there, and I've had a couple calls in the last couple of days wondering if I knew where people were buried, and my memory is just as good as all of yours. So that's a great idea. My question is, do you have all the data of every person that's buried in Suffolk?
No, we don't, because there's a old part where the map was destroyed a few years back, and no one seems to have any location. We just asked the families where their family is buried, and we just have to go with that on the old part. But on the new part, it's all mapped out.
Where's the new part? Closer to the back?
Yeah.
That's all mapped out. That's good. So if you need any help with one, I know where one relatively one is later, when you get everything all together. But I think it's a really good idea. A second it.
Thanks, Audrey. So we have a mover and a seconder. And I guess just on that, would records have that information? No? Okay. They don't? I hear no is,
I would just double check to make sure.
okay, so we may be able to help you there. Over to Helen.
Yeah, my question is, I don't see a resolution here. So my question is, which one of these three are we approving? Which one did you say it was?
Bang Construction,
Obeying construction.
for
Okay.
41,850.
Yeah, shouldn't we have a resolution?
What do you have, Teresa?
Yeah, it's for the upgrade of the laneways and the expansion too. Yeah.
No. Sorry about that. Okay. So do we have the motion that we're supporting? Okay, so I have Melva, Hazel, and Greg.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I've certainly come by the corner many times and really wondered what was happening there. I did see some improvements, so I knew that a group such as yourselves, which you've explained today, have been, excuse me, working very hard to revive the Stump Hall. So that's really nice to see because many times people come and they really don't make their efforts that they could to help themselves. So it's really appreciated that you're coming forward, and I certainly agree with what you're doing. And it looks like you have other board members, Becky and Barb. Yeah. And you have more too? You have more? Two more? Who are the others? Oh, okay. Yeah. That's a great bunch. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you very much for helping the entire community and welcoming. It was nice to hear that burials can be for anyone on the reserve. That's really nice. Thank you.
Thanks, Melba. Hazel?
Yes, I would just like to clarify with costs. Wayne, is there money to cover the cost of that?
My recommendation would be to identify the orphan LP as the funding source in the motion.
And I just wanted to add to that, at the St. Luke's Anglican Church, there was many unmarked graves and we had the ground penetrating come in and they flagged where there was graves. And it was up to families to identify which families was theirs, like they all had a little flag. But unfortunately, some families don't come, and we wanted everybody to mark their family's graves, but it didn't happen that way. But overall, we have a pretty good idea of who was where, so if that could help you maybe identify some of the graves. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with it as well. To Hazel's point as well with the ground penetrating radar, I think it's important that we locate remains. One question I had was the difference between Bang Level and Dan Elliott Construction. You were saying that Bang Level is using recycled asphalt, right? Is Dan Elliott Construction, are they using just regular asphalt or is it recycled asphalt as well?
No, they were using gravel.
They were just using gravel?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
Perfect. Is there any other questions? Okay, so we will go to a vote. All in favor of supporting this recommendation? Does anybody oppose? Hearing none, motion is carried. Wait, okay. Waive a second reading, moved by Sherry Lynn. Second by Audrey, all in favor? Anybody opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Well, thank you, the committee, for being here this morning, and Wayne, you will liaise with Rin and Ron, and we'll get the funds out the door. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No.
Okay, moving right along to the adoption of the general finance minutes of August 23rd. I'm hoping everybody had an opportunity to review them. Helen, you're moving? Moved by Helen. Do I have a seconder to approve the minutes? Second by Sherry Lynn. Any comments, any changes to those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Does anybody oppose? Minutes are carried. Okay, number 5, Public Works.
Michelle,
Oh, go ahead, Melba.
before you go on, can I add treatment center to the agenda, please?
Okay. So we're moving on to number 5, Public Works, minor capital culvert replacement project. And so we have our Director of Public Works, Mike, online. So Mike, I will give the floor over to you and you can give an update to community what we're doing, and then I will read the recommendation.
Okay, now, Sago, good morning, everybody. My name is Michael Montour. I'm Director of Public Works for Six Nations. Just to give everyone a bit of a background as to why this is here today. So we work with Indigenous Services Canada to get funding for a lot of our major capital projects. Specifically for our bridges and culverts, what we do is we follow provincial best practice. So we have our bridges and culverts inspected every 2 years. And from there, what happens is we're provided with a cost estimate, and the inspector, the consultant, prioritizes our structures, priority 1, 2, 3, etc. So this was actually identified as priority number 1, which is the replacement of culvert 2017, and it's located on Seneca Road between 2nd and 3rd line. We've been able to work with Indigenous Services Canada for completing a design, and we've recently been approved for construction funding. So we've made really good progress on this in a very short time, which is great. However, we're not sure if we're able to proceed to construction here in the fall or in the spring. That's yet to be determined, but definitely we'll provide notice to the community in advance as best we can. The estimated cost of this is just under $500,000, which necessitates minor capital approval. So that means that basically part of the capital approval process within Indigenous Services Canada, we got to fill out an application, do environmental forms, and once that's done, everything is ready to go, and then they just need a council resolution, which is why this is here today. Now.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So for the community, I'm going to read the recommendation and then I'll open it up for questions. So whereas the Six Nations Public Works Department had an Ontario Structure Inspection Manual Report completed in 2022, which identified replacing culvert 2017 located on Seneca Road between 2nd and 3rd line as the top bridge and culvert priority in the community. Whereas the Six Nations Public Works Department has since advanced this project to be shovel ready by having the alternatives assessed, as well as the design and environmental work completed. Whereas the Six Nations Public Works Department is now seeking funding for design and construction from Indigenous Services Canada, which requires a band council resolution as part of their funding approval process. Therefore, the Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council supports minor capital application to Indigenous Services Canada for funding the Six Nations Culvert 2017 replacement project. Questions? Comments? Hazel?
I'll move on the recommended resolution. Then I'll second it, Melba.
Moved by Hazel, second by Melba. Questions? Seeing none. Audrey?
Go, Mike. Just wanted to make sure that the bridge is going to take into account the large flash floodings and all the rest of the climate change that we're doing now. We're being proactive.
So within those analysis and that design, they do those projections, and they look at historical issues in that area to see if that culvert needs to be upsized or not. In this case specifically, they're just doing like for like, so they are replacing with a similar size culvert as is in there, and that should give us, let's say, 30 to 40 years of life for this new culvert. One thing I did not say is that usually when we do these culvert replacements, we do close the road. So there'll be a road closure for a period of time and detours set up. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Hearing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor? Does anybody oppose? Seeing none, motion is carried. B, waive second reading, moved by Hazel, second by Melba. All in favor? Anybody oppose? Motion is carried. Okay, so that's been passed. Thanks, Mike. And we're going to move right along to number 6, the rehabilitation of bridge number 6 and 14. So over to you, Mike.
Excellent. Thank you. So give a good overview of the process for funding approval with Indigenous Services Canada. This is in the same boat, and it has to do with the exact same study that we did in evaluating our bridge and culvert priorities and what we need to do in the community to make sure that everything remains safe and for the community to pass by. So so we just talked about priority number 1. Now we're on to priorities number 2 and 3. So priority number 2 was Bridge 6. Bridge 6 is located on 3rd line between Seneca and Chiefswood Road. And then priority number 3 was Bridge 14, which is located on Onondaga Road between 5th and 6th. So the approach with this one here is both of these bridges need to be rehabilitated. So what we're doing is we're bundling them, meaning that we're going to design them, do all that work at the same time. And then when it comes to construction, we're going to do that at the same time as well. Indigenous Services Canada is supportive of that approach, which is great because we get to progress through our priorities fairly quickly. We're hoping to secure funding, get the design done, and move into construction next year. That's our target. And the total estimated cost is just over $3 million for that project. And within that, so we just passed a resolution for a minor capital application. So the difference between a minor capital application is that it's under $1.5 million for a total estimated value. And once we get over the 1.5, we move into something called a project approval request. So it's just a different level of approval just because of the dollar amount. And so it's the exact same thing in that we just need a council resolution as part of the funding process. Things are looking positive, and I would expect we would get the funding so long as they have the funding regionally in Indigenous Services Canada. And then I would definitely keep the community updated as far as anticipated construction timelines, because again, there'll be traffic disruptions within that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So for the community, I'm going to read the full recommendation, and then we will go to conversation and discussion. Whereas the Six Nations Public Works Department had an Ontario Structure Inspection Manual report completed in 2022, which identified bridge number 6 located on 3rd line between Seneca and Chiefswood Road, and bridge number 14 located on Onondaga Road between 5th and 6th line as a 2nd and 3rd bridge and culvert priorities in the community, and recommended both for major rehabilitation. Whereas the Six Nations Public Works Department has since advanced this project through the preliminary design stage, and is seeking funding from Indigenous Services Canada for all project costs. Whereas the Six Nations Public Works has recommended consolidating both bridge rehabilitations into one large project, and Indigenous Services supports this approach. Whereas Indigenous Services requires a band council resolution as part of their capital approval process. Therefore, that the Six Nations of the Grand River elected council supports a project approval request to Indigenous Services Canada for funding for the rehabilitation of bridges number 6 and 14 project. Okay, any questions? Greg, Hazel? Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, hi, Mike. Yeah, I remember that, the report you did on all the bridges and that, and some of them were needed some remedial work, and there were different levels of, I guess, in disrepair, some of the bridges were. And as I think we discussed this before about our needs, about our infrastructure being quite high, is there any value in going to ISC and saying, or applying for bundle funding for pretty much all the needs for the bridges that are required through remedial work on the reserve? often I have a feeling that would kind of fall with this, would kind of fall on deaf ears because it seems to be a piecemeal process, right? Where you have to show almost emergency need and then apply and then wait and then see what the response is. But do you see any need for bundling a lot of these bridges together and all this work together and applying to ISC?
Absolutely, for sure. And that's part of what we're doing here. So we've never really bundled a few structures like this before. So it's definitely progress in that direction. And in regards to Indigenous Services Canada and our needs, so we got about $1.6 billion in infrastructure needs to close the infrastructure gap by 2030. And that's an exercise that Indigenous Services Canada had asked us to put a tangible value on, and we've done that. But I know that they're doing work within their own selves to figure out how they can best support. But in the interim here, we are bundling and we're progressing. So we did have, quite a bit of infrastructure needs as far as bridge and culverts. So the next phase would be once we basically the same approach as this is that okay, we knocked off priorities 1, 2, and 3, and then next year we'll get to work on priorities 4 and on and figure out how we can best bundle and make the best value for money and make that case to ISC and make sure that we meet our needs for the community.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Just a follow-up comment. I think that leads us to the fact that a lot of our needs, we're going to have to find our own source revenue. I think in a lot of these situations, I think waiting for ISC is always a delay. And as we wait, a lot of our infrastructure deteriorates. And again, I think it's important that we look towards our own source revenue. But thanks, Mike.
Yeah, I just wanted to make the comment that with that effect of bundling some of these projects that need to be done quicker than later, maybe we should push ISC that way by bundling as much as you can get in there, Mike, asking for a huge lump sum. And they'll realize that these are necessities that need to be done sooner than later. I would just keep pushing that to see what all you can do as far as bundling goes. And I just wanted to say that I'd move this resolution. Thanks.
So we have a mover. Do I have a seconder? Second by Sherry Lynn. Any further comments?
I just want to make a comment, Chair, if I could, just in regards to local employment. So whenever we have these projects for bridges, it is a bit more specialized and there's not a lot of local vendors that actually do bid. If it is a non-local vendor, we do encourage them to hire locally through Grand River Employment and Training. And we've been successful in, pairing some local people with them, and while our own infrastructure projects being completed, but they also carry on in times with that contractor to more jobs in different communities. So we've seen some success. And again, we're always encouraging those vendors, any vendor whatsoever, to, you're shopping, you're eating, you're doing everything local here to bring the best benefit to the community. So a lot of that money comes back home and supports our local businesses and members. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Mike. And so with that, we have a motion on the floor. We'll go to the vote. All in favor? Does anybody oppose? Seeing and hearing none, motion is carried. Waiving of second reading, moved by Hazel, seconded by Sherry Lynn. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Okay, Mike, thank you so much. Yeah, that's all you have today, correct?
That's it. Now have a great day, everybody. Have a great week.
Now, Mike, take care. Okay, council, let's move right along to 7, signing authority. So we know there's been some changes within administration. So we have a recommendation before us, which says, whereas the Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council wish to continue best financial practice to ensure that 2 council signatories are consistently available. Therefore, be it resolved that the Six Nations Elected Council approves that Dwayne Jacobs, Director of Policy, Records, and Communication, be added as a signing authority on all Six Nations of the Grand River elected councils' business accounts effective immediately. Okay, so we have that motion before us. Conversation.
Michelle?
So maybe Wayne, you can, I'm assuming because Darren is on leave, we do not have a signer, so we actually need someone to fill in that role.
Yes, Chair, this is specifically for the business banking accounts. And historically, we've always had a minimum of 4 signers. And as you know, we are down to 3 currently right now. So this would ensure that there is always someone available here in the event that a signature is required. Right now, it's Chief Mark, myself, and Jennifer Court.
Melba, and then, oh, did you have your
Yeah.
hand up?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll move on the resolution. I think it's straightforward that it is very necessary when there's a change that we keep abreast of signing officers for all businesses that we deal with. Thank you.
Thanks, Melba. Carrie?
Yeah, wouldn't we consider the new CEO that's going to be coming in soon, I hope? Because, you know, potentially it's a year, but it could be longer. I just wondered about that, that's all.
Over to you. Wayne? Okay, yeah, at this point, we are not aware of who is filling that interim position. And so to ensure that we're following our process and policy, we're going to bring in a 4th signer. And should we very soon get that position filled, we will then be back to council to make another recommendation. Okay, so I have a mover. It's moved by Melba. Do I have a seconder? Helen? Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Does anybody oppose? None. Motion is carried. Waiving of second reading.
I'll waive, Melba.
Thanks, Melba. Helen? Seconder? Helen? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Okay, thank you. And moving next, right along is our Health Services Senior Relief Fund. Okay, so I'm assuming Sandy is on the line, or maybe it's Aiden is on the line, and we'll go in depth in regards to the request, but I will read the recommendation for community and then we'll go into conversation. So the recommendation reads, whereas the current maximum allowable limit for the Senior Relief Fund per applicant per year of $3,500 is inadequate to service our seniors' needs. Whereas the cost of items and services seniors are applying for are often far greater than $3,500 due to inflation. There is a need to permanently increase the maximum allowable limit per applicant per year. Therefore, be it resolved that Six Nations of the Grand River elected council permanently increase the maximum allowable limit per applicant per year to $5,000 for the Senior Relief Fund. Okay, so with that, that is the motion that is on the table right now. Aiden, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I did just want to add that for the previous fiscal year, that this increased limit was approved, and we were helping a number of seniors in the community with the $5,000 limit, and then coming into this fiscal, that didn't roll over. So now we have a number of applicants who would be familiar with the program from the previous year, who have heard about it and heard about the $5,000 limit, and are now kind of being surprised when they hear that the limit it's not $5,000 any longer. But what we've been kind of going ahead and telling them is that we are currently advocating to hopefully get this limit increased back to $5,000 again.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Audrey?
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea because, as you know, the cost keeps continuing to rise. And when you want to get a furnace, ramps, air conditioning, anything of the big ticket items, a new roof on, it's far more than $3,500. So I'll move on this. I really do support it.
Okay, thanks, Audrey. Helen, then Sherry Lynn.
Yeah, I'm glad this came up today because me and Greg were talking about this the other day. My feeling is we really need to look at this program. I met with an older lady on Friday. She's disabled. She had her leg cut off. She paid for her own ramp because she didn't know she could get money anywhere. She know nothing about the senior relief fund. And she paid for her own ramp and she was going to do something else for herself. And I referred her to the senior relief fund. I said, go see them, see if she had never heard of it. And that's been here, what, almost 10 years? I think we need to hire a person to do this program. That person could also be an elderly advocate for other issues with elderly people. Just this person to do the program, an elderly person to do all the elderly stuff. Because it's not working well when it's someplace else. People are having a hard time to get a hold of people. Poor Aiden, he's got his own job to do on top of dealing with these issues. And it's a lot of times the elders are saying they're not getting calls, they're not getting calls back. It's not a very good program for them right now. And I think there's a whole lot of elders that don't even know it's here that they can use it because communication hasn't been very good on this program. I've been saying stuff about communication ever since we started doing the program. We've never really did a comprehensive communication strategy on this program. So if you go around and ask some of the elders when you're, out and about to see if they know about the program, I'll bet you there's going to be a lot of them that don't even know. So I think council really needs to come up with some kind of an idea to hire somebody just for this. I know we got that one lady that deals with elderly, but even that isn't enough. This person that I'm thinking about that we hired to do the senior relief fund could deal with the elderly on a day-to-day basis stuff. Like the kind of things we get from the elder lodges, the different, I don't want to say complaints, but the concerns that we get from there. A lot of times they're going unaddressed because there's nobody to address them. So this is going to be my suggestion to council. I want to hire somebody just for this. And I think Aiden probably would be happy to hear that too. It never worked out. It was at health first. It didn't work well. So then it went over to welfare and it didn't work well. Now it's back to health again. It seems like this program's just been getting slung around everywhere, trying to find somebody to do it. And it's really difficult. We need to spend a lot of time with our elders. So that's my suggestion. And I'm going to be writing a more formal email to council. I'll propose a briefing note to council to suggest doing that.
Thanks. Helen, can you turn your mic off, please? And I agree with you. I mean, we had the elder advocate. I think there is some role clarification that does need to happen so that can fit there. Wayne, just before I go over to Sherry Lynn and Hazel and Melba, how much is in the actual fund per year?
The annualized funding is determined by council at budgetary time. As of today's date, the remaining funds are at 131,000.
Thank you. Sherry Lynn?
Yeah, I agree with what everybody's saying because I think that's the email, if you guys all remember, that I wrote regarding elders and what they're requesting and help with. And I think we need an elders department. So it's all under one roof because my concern is the same as what Helen's is it's scattered everywhere. So if it was under one roof, then people would know where to go. And I guess the number of community members over 55 is like over 9,000 on and off reserve. So we have one person who is doing this position, and then she's doing the advocate. Also, what I found out, because I knew it used to be two positions, two different things. So I really think that not just one, I think we really need to beef up the dealing with the elders, but put them all under one roof and give them some continuum of care, because it just seems too scattered, and that's not fair, and that's not right. The easier that we can make it, the better that they can just go to one place. So yeah, so I totally agree. And I think that we really need to make it the advocate by itself, and if the senior relief fund, because I know she's doing both, and this one person can't do both. I'll second.
Thanks, Sherry Lynn, and I agree with you. Moving to Hazel.
Yes, I would just like to suggest that with the calls that you get and the questions that are asked, I think we need to go a few steps further. And so as far as maybe creating a handbook that outlines all the services that are provided from this organization to the community. I had a call a couple of weeks ago from a guy who was out driving his truck. He's a truck driver, but he had concerns about his mom. And he told me the situation of his concerns and that his mom really needs some help because of her condition, but he feels bad that she's kind of just left unto herself. And he was hoping that she would have some kind of a interaction with programs where she could go do things with elders. And then she needed a situation within her home fixed. So I put him in touch with this Kim Jones, who was quite nice to that family. And I followed up with this truck driver, and he said they were in a process of getting things in order for his mom. But those are the kind of services that we say people don't even know some of these programs exist. Well, all of us doesn't pay attention to anything unless we need it. So when you really need something, you're going to search out where you can find some help. So I think if we took the initiative and put forth a big handbook of all the services, like however it takes to put all that together, and it could be provided to each home who has like a directory within their home of what their needs might be insofar as how it matches up with our programs. Thank you.
Thanks, Hazel. Over to Melba.
Yeah, I certainly agree with Helen in her area of concern, and also for a program specifically in place for elders. I too have experienced right now someone needing acupuncture known across the reserve, and as I said before, we've been neglecting elders in a lot of ways. So I think we should move forward if we can. I think ramps and walk-in bathtubs, things like that are really needed for our people. And hopefully we can certainly begin to accommodate them a bit more. And it appears that we're hearing the voices of the people as opposed to knowing who's running the programs. And I think that's a result of our council and how they actually, I guess, take care of our elders and other people in the community concerning the way we operate now. We don't know how the programs are operating, but we do know at times they're about the individuals. They're telling us more what their needs are as opposed to hearing from programs how they're functioning and helping the service that they provide. So hopefully things will change around overall, not just for the seniors, but overall for the entire community, knowing the services that are in place across the board. Even with what we've dealt with now with Mike and the bridges and things like this, some of this should be in the paper so the community knows what the council is doing in respect to helping keep, I guess, the community safe in the situation with possible bridge collapses as we hear all over the world. We certainly have to be concerned about the climate change. I think Audrey mentioned that today. What is happening with all the rain and everything that affects our environment, I guess. So hopefully we can do that. Maybe some of these things need to be in the paper as we make resolutions. I know some of the papers follow some of it, but no, it should be the entirety of what we're dealing with as council to service the community. Thanks.
Thanks, Melba. Okay, Greg? And then Audrey.
Yeah, hi, Aiden. I know we spoke at length about getting help for you, for your department as well, for actually finding it somewhat of a navigator, someone that could help some of our seniors navigate through the Senior Relief Fund. Well, my concern too, as well as I thought that the 5,000 would be renewed. I know that has to come to council to be renewed yearly, but I think that's a good thing that we do continue on with that. I did have an opportunity to speak with Sandy and Jesse over at Health, and also Arliss about a lot of times when they get requests over 5,000, they have to almost co-fund. They have to find areas to navigate through all of their services to find adequate funding for some of our seniors. So I do agree with adding some type of employee, or, and to Sherilyn's point of even having some type of an elder services department, which would be, I think, more comprehensive in terms of care for our elders. No, it's just my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. And so what I'm hearing is we really need to look into our priority of seniors. Over to you, Audrey.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. I think it might be a good idea for us to take a look at Dudjo and see if that site can be used for many of these things that we're talking about now, right now as council. There could be an office set up there, and maybe that's where a lot of this information can be handed out. And maybe some of the workers could be over there, situated there on certain days of the week to help navigate our seniors through all this paperwork, and to let them know what all programs are available to them and explain it clearly to them. So that's a suggestion I'd like to make, you know.
Okay, thank you. And I'm hoping that that will be relayed to our acting director of health services, who can then disseminate that down to her team, because they do, as Barb mentioned this morning, they have card games. I've been over there. You get everybody there. They're having a good old time, so we can share that information when we're there. Okay, so is there any other comments? Seeing none, we have Audrey moving, Sherilyn seconding. So we will go to the vote. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Waive second reading. Audrey, Sherilyn, all in favor? Anybody opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Perfect. Thanks, Aiden, for being with us. Have yourself a great day. Moving right along to Gowanio School construction. So last Tuesday evening, we had the Gowanio board here in our general council meeting, and a motion was put forward to look at supporting the board with a loan to start construction of the school. And so Hazel, well, actually, do we have that motion? Hazel, do you have the actual motion that we discussed?
No, I just recommended that that the council find out from finance in order for us to approve, like be a co-signer for Gowanio to go to the bank and get a loan. And I know that they've had great success with attending at these banks. I think it was let's see, Bank of Montreal, Royal and CIBC who are interested in giving them a loan, but it would be council would have to co-sign on their behalf. And I'm not sure how that would affect the school in terms of the rent they pay, because I had asked them about could the money that they get for rent in their annual budget be applied to the a loan, and they said no. So I'm not sure how that'll work with ISK, but I think all along if they proceed with this school and they have a loan where they can get the school moving rather than just staying the same. Here we are again at September, all the kids have returned and are back in that same situation that is really not conducive to a good learning environment. Nevertheless, they keep trudging along. I don't know how many years we're talking about now because it's been many. So I would just recommending that council would support Gowanio and maybe be like a co-signer on their behalf to allow them to go ahead and get a loan to start their building. Thanks. Oh, sorry,
Thanks, Hazel. And so I guess there's some due diligence that needs to happen before we do this. Okay, so we do need that in a motion though, right? For to have Wayne look into potentially how we could support through co-signing a loan for Gowanio. So I'm assuming Hazel, you're moving, Audrey, you're seconding. Any questions? Melba?
Yeah, I don't have a question, but I have concerns. I certainly do agree that we possibly need a loan, but I'm looking at the responsibility that the government has in funding education here on the reserve. Because education is a right to all people, all children. And that's a concern of mine, that the fiduciary responsibility will be relinquished. What is going to happen, when you need outside equipment, for example? It's going to be ongoing. It's part of, I guess, long-term, I guess, plans of we're going to have to tax the people in the future. It's going to need an upkeep. It's not going to be part of the financial or provincial government. That is a really concern we should all have. And how do we get around that? I'm not sure if Audrey in her educational meetings discussed this at all concerning Gowanio and how they can be helped, maybe otherwise than a loan. But I certainly believe that we need the school in place. We can't allow them to be in such terrible conditions. As it was mentioned in the paper, you don't even have windows. The children don't, let alone a playground. So I want to hear some discussion, what your thoughts are for the future and how the government has a responsibility. How are we going to get out of that? Is that a start? Because they have said before, you own the schools, Six Nations, and we said, no, we don't. They wanted us to be responsible years and years, and as the time went on, when there's problems with windows broken in schools, for example, that's your responsibility. How do we keep up with the upkeep if we don't have the funds to do it? So I'd like to hear what you have to say, Council, on those areas of fiscal responsibility.
Okay, thanks, Melba. So I see Greg's next, and then I see Helen and then Audrey.
Yeah, the last Tuesday, the presenters gave us a good argument about why ISK doesn't usually want to fund these, and that they consider it maybe a private school. And when ISK cannot control the situation, they're often reluctant to fund it. And I think in terms of our situation, I think we should control our own education when it comes to language. I think that a good idea would be to some type of funding or a loan. That way we can control our own language in our own schools. The brings me back to sometimes that we may have to consider on the longer term is our own source funding. And as we look towards more avenues for new new sources of funding, I think that that is one of the main objectives, is to get out of the control of ISC. Because ISC is the ones that control the education and right presently in the non-language schools. So that was just my comments. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm not gonna support this resolution. Because I don't think it's a really huge commitment that we're looking at. I know we're just looking at it, but that's a huge commitment. And I don't think sitting around this council table discussing it for a couple of minutes is sufficient. We need to sit down and really discuss this and what we're planning to do or what we want to do. We need to discuss everything, as you said, with finance. There's a lot of issues looking to, when you can't just go out and borrow money. Council can't just go out and borrow money. We have a certain, I don't know what the word is, but like a ratio of how much you can borrow compared to how much you owe. We can't just do that. It's not that easy. So I think we need to discuss this more. I really, and I, like Greg said, and I've been saying it all along, this is a private school, and that's why ISC isn't funding it. In Ontario, private schools are funded by the parents, pretty much, and corporations, big business. They don't get government funding, not even in Ontario, not just here. But as you heard from last week, we heard Gaiwadia doesn't want to be under anyone. They want to keep their board. They don't want to go council based or ISC based or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, that's that. I'm not going to support this resolution at this time, not till we have further discussion.
Appreciate your comments, Helen, and that is actually the motion. I think finance is one piece of it, and the council can have that conversation. And we do have 4 councillors sitting on the Gowanio board that I believe these conversations are being had, and we proposed last Tuesday night, like, where is the capital campaign? Because we have a lot of entities in our community that are actually fundraising for new buildings, and they do have their capital campaigns going. So with that, Audrey, I'll give you the last comment and then we'll go to a vote.
I think, first of all, that we take the taxation right off the table, because that's not anything we're looking at in the future for education. I think it might help if we call these schools, too, moving forward, community schools. And that way they all belong to all of us. They don't, people can't consider them private, although they're stipulated for specific uses. Controlling our own language has been a goal for the lifelong learning since it was started 7 years ago. And the school system will be based on language and culture and with strong academics. So people will know who they are and hopefully come back to the reserve with their education once they get it. And part of the stuff that we worked on is what Greg's been saying all along, is our own source revenue, as well as Chief Hill. And I think a lot of that can come also to from our court case, which is in right now being worked on. And I do agree with what Helen is saying about our ratio to debt borrowing. We have to make sure all of that is checked out, which I'm sure Wayne will do. And they do have a capital fundraising, which they did raise funds for, but maybe it needs to have more, needs to further be worked on, I guess, to expand out into the community and maybe tackling some larger numbers. And maybe we've been working with some of these companies that are around here that we give so much money to. Why aren't they giving back to Six Nations? So those are my views, and for listening.
Thank you. And so, at this time, then we have a motion on the floor. Hazel?
Just want to add a little bit more here with regard to that whole idea of the Truth and Reconciliation and the idea that language and culture would be prominent for First Nations with the Trudeau government. I think the Native people were the ones who helped Trudeau get into his office as the Prime Minister. But now it seems like they're pulling back every little dime and penny that they can get a hold of. So that stands true to just not even, I don't know, I don't want to say it of no respect from them, but kind of boils down to that. With regard to the 4 coasters, I've been the only one attending that Gowanio School Board's meetings consistently. So maybe if all 4 counselors did attend regular, that would also add some background, because I can't remember all the details, but I'm doing my best. What I want to say too is that ISC already provides funding to Gowanio, like for, like, what is those costs called, Audrey? ISC provides all the funding for their salaries and all of that, and operating. Yeah, they already do that. So if they get in a new school, it's just going to flip over to the new school. So what's the big deal? I think we know that ISC needs to step up and be who they're supposed to be. And I think if we just say, well, we need this to do this, look at it, look what ISC has done to this reserve for the last 30 some years. They haven't given any money, and if we keep waiting, the time frame will go longer, maybe to 60, 100 years. Gowanio will still be up in that arena. That's how I look at it, and I think we as a council need to be stronger with ISC. And like, I still don't know the full story with regard to the funding from GRE. I'm not in tune with that, and I, when Mark talks about it, I don't know what stage they're at with that. That's another possibility, but we need to stand firm and make a decision and tell ISC, you know, okay, due to the fact that Gowanio was denied that funding when they applied again, they've applied so many times that this council is going to go this way, and they fully expect is to fund and provide the loan funding each year with the money that they already get for them for their school. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so we have a motion on the floor to actually have some work done by our finance team to see if this is even viable. So that motion is on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Teresa?
It's to have finance investigate how we can. Oh, hello? Hey? It's to see how to finance to investigate how we can support Gowanio School in regards to co-signing a loan.
Are you good, Melba? Yes. Or Hazel, sorry. Good. Okay. Okay, so we're going to do our due diligence if the council agrees to that. All in favor? Does anybody oppose? I have one opposition. That motion is carried. Or you oppose, Melba?
No, I just want to say that I would hope their discussion with the board and have a real understanding that this is going to be a loan. It's very difficult, as I said, for me to, I'm like Helen, I'm really concerned of the future, not just now, of the future, but I know the children are suffering teachers are suffering, their education is suffering, I know that. So it's a very difficult decision, but I know we need it. So if it can be added with further discussion, it makes me think of the arena, how the community came together. That in 1970, 69 and 70 to build that arena to begin it. And there it is sitting there. The community came forward. We haven't, I'm closing my eyes because I have, I have problems with my eyes running. I guess we need to reach out to the community more with all the businesses, for example, and see how much we can certainly gather to begin to build this school that is necessary. And as we know, we've talked of our funeral parlors. We know that we haven't received anything concerning dollars and donations from individuals who own the funeral parlors. We have millionaires out there who are not contributing. So I would hope that we would do some more community work along with further discussion with the board at the Gowanio level.
Thanks, Melba. And I just actually want to correct you because I do think a lot of our community members give. I know I mean, everybody's always talking about our tobacco and cannabis people, but I've seen them give a lot of money in the millions. And so I do have a question that came up after Gowanio presented last week. And someone indicated that the bank, and Hazel, I'm looking at you to clarify, that the board members make a lot of money for each meeting. Can you actually tell us how much honorarium is for each board member?
No idea, because they don't sit on the board for.
Okay.
That's how the rest of these other counselors that were assigned,
Yeah,
we were assigned to that building committee component of going.
okay. So I found it pretty extreme, the honorarium, and so I would think, I would like to actually diffuse that if it's a rumor, because that's what was brought to me last week. So maybe we can get somebody who's on the board to actually share that information. So we have then, Melba?
Yeah, further comment. It wasn't meant to say that the millionaires on the reserve are not contributing. They have not been asked to contribute to this particular school that's needed for our children. That's what the clarification is from me.
Yeah, and I would just say they have, and they actually give to other schools as well. Audrey?
Yeah, I like, excuse me, I like the idea that Helen is saying. We have so many moving parts to this. There needs to be one major plan with everybody getting together to brainstorm all the ideas of where we can get money, what needs to be done first, whether we have to build it in steps, phases, so that this school can be built. And we still cannot let the federal government off the hook because it's their financial responsibility for the schools on Six Nations. So we could meet and discuss it and bring all the stakeholders in. I think we're going to get more done the more people have ideas they have for fundraising and for seeing people who have the funds for donations, big companies, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, Audrey, and yeah, I think just having volunteered with the other private school in our community, they don't go for ISK funding. They do it all internally, right? So it is very different. And they have community support. So it is interesting how the dynamics roll out in this community. So with that, we've moved that motion with one opposed. And Wayne, we will move that over to you for further follow-up in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the next finance meeting. Does that work? Okay. Okay. We're good. Thank you. So we had one addition. Melba, your treatment center.
Uh, before Darren Jameson had left as CEO for a year, he did have, I believe I read it in the articles in the paper that, he had set aside 7.1 million for a treatment center. Now that's, as we know, that's another need that we have in a community. We're talking about saving people's lives. So I think, council and the community should know where that situation is at. And Wayne is here, and I'd like to hear from him as to what is happening with that 7.1 million and how it may be getting off the ground to begin building this treatment center.
Yes, Melba, thank you. I will have to follow up with the fellow executive team leaders because I was not privy to all of the plans and priorities that the CEO office had ongoing. So I will have, all I can say right now is that I will have to follow up because I am curious myself.
Hopefully by next finance meeting that we can have an answer for that.
We should be able to have an answer, yes, as to the status of it. I'll also have to confer with the well-being
Thank you.
department.
Okay, thanks, Wayne. Audrey?
Yeah, I agree with what Mel was saying, and I think everybody on council here agree that we do need a treatment center here for addictions, for mental health. What I've noticed in the community is we have many different mental health programs. We have some of them you have to apply in person for. There's another one that takes in at Ganeos and at the mental health there, and you go and see the people there at mental health, and they tell you what programs are available for you to go to. There's other ones you can just walk in and self-advocate. So I think that the mental health program on Six Nations needs to be really looked at. I think that we have a lot of people accessing in the jails due to their addictions and mental health. And that when they come out, they basically, it's like a revolving door. So I would like to see if we could work on this as a community and get some more services in for the people who are having these problems. Because when you think of it, not only is there a victim to the crime, there's a victim of these people who have mental health illness and who have addictions. So they are a victim to get their condition, and they also deserve wraparound services. They deserve to be treated with dignity and not shunned. So we've got a lot of work to do, and I think it's pulling together. And I saw the big start of it when we did care and trauma-informed care at the gathering place a couple of weeks ago. And it was good to see a couple of the programs working together. So that's what I would like to recommend for this whole reserve, to work together for all of our members who are in need. And the treatment center, I think, has to have a place where people can go when they come out of jail, because if they're, depending on the severity, going back to their family home may not be the best decision for them. So they need a transition place. They need to have people working with them, making sure they're taking the right meds, making sure they have counseling, all the rest of it, meals, a place to stay, and then transitioning out of there. And that's one way we're going to be able to get our community healthy again, as well as we have to be very careful with this cannabis that we've done. The numbers are too high for the milligrams that are allowed. And we're going to see more and more people with psychotic breaks on Six Nations, more and more mental health issues. the reserve in Calgary or in Alberta. It's called Athabasca, and they have recently declared a state of emergency due to mental health and addictions to drugs, alcohol, etc. So one of the things I did say when I was at this workshop was that we have to keep all that data. We should know how many people we're dealing with addictions and what we're doing with them. We need to reach out to our youth to try and influence them, and so they do not go down that path of drugs, alcohol, and the combination of may be legal, but it certainly isn't good for a lot of people, and especially for seniors as well. So those are my thoughts. I hope we continue to discuss them as we go along. Yeah.
Thank you. Melba?
Yes, thanks, Audrey. You covered a lot of things and that's really appreciated. I think of the van that health services certainly paid a lot of money for, which was from the United States. It's my understanding that was supposed to be an outreach van. When Wendy was here, Wendy Johnson, Martin said, where is the van? Is it up on blocks? Where is it? Because it wasn't seen in the community very much. And now, I don't know about the rest of you, I don't see it at all. I don't know what's happening with it. So I think we need to do more of outreach too. When we hear of so-and-so is an alcoholic, so-and-so is, strung out on drugs, I think that van would be very, very beneficial to reach out to people who are in stress and not in their own mind, that they're certainly, I guess, under pressure as a result of their problems in life. So I'd like to hear from that. But when Lori Davis was here, I would ask quite often, I'll call it the supportive housing with mental health and addictions. And I always didn't seem to get enough information to understand, are they successful over there? Is there relapses when they come out of treatment and go into our own building, which I guess the community should know that we own that building now. My understanding, there's 9 units for mental health, 9 units for addiction. So maybe we as a council can find out more about that, how it is being successful and what more needs should be in place, I guess, to help the people who are suffering from mental illness, as Audrey said, and addictions. So maybe we can reach out and have somebody report to us. Thanks.
Thank you. Helen?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to remind us that Six Nations supports Native Horizons Treatment Center. We're a member of the board there. So we do have a treatment center. The problem is the Native Horizons Treatment Center's program requires people to be clean. I think it's either 4 weeks or 6 weeks before they can go into the program. That's where the problem is. We need a rehab center. That's what we need. Because the people can go into the rehab center to get clean and everything before they go into treatment. And Melba's right too. We need almost like a transition after the treatment. So we do have a treatment center, Native Horizon Treatment Center. Thank goodness it's back up working again since it burnt down. But Six Nation Council sits on that board. I don't know if all of you know that, but so we need a rehab center is what we need really. And I think we need to find out, like Melba said, more about what these drug programs that we have in place are doing. Are they making a difference? Is that program working, like Melba said, where they go into the apartments? But because I know some people goes in those apartments supposedly to be getting off drugs when they're sitting in there taking drugs. So we need to know if all our programs are working and what they're doing. We very seldom hear about the drug program at, I don't even know what it's called anymore, over by the medical center. What's that program called there? There's mental health and addiction. Anyway, that's my.
Thank you, Helen. And we're actually going through an evaluation on the impacts our programs are having, because I think we've grown so large that we find funds, we apply for them, we get them, but are they having positive impacts in our community? So Zach and his team are well underway doing that. And so with that, I think, that was up for information. Melba, you got what you wanted, and Wayne will follow up.
Yeah, just a little follow-up. Yeah, Helen's right. We certainly do have a treatment center, which is on New Credit Reserve. And we do have Sherry Lynn sits there, right? Sherry Lynn? Maybe Sherry Lynn has some things to say, but just recently, one of our people tried to get treatment there, counseling, and they were turned away. It's not, I don't think it's the best thing for us. We need our own. We are very big, as we know, compared to New Credit. Lots of people here that are suffering, as we know. So we need our own, with our own culture and Western way of dealing with our people when they get into facilities that require assistance for their mental health and addiction problems. We don't want to wait in line. We would do better with our own treatment, and as Helen said, rehab center. So I really don't like it the way it is, and hopefully we can look forward to having our own facility where our Six Nations people come first. And those that, if there's spaces, then others can certainly get some help too. Thanks.
Thanks, Melba. And Sherry Lynn is the board member on Native Horizons, so she's going to respond.
Yeah, just to let everyone know that, yes, the beds, they're doing the residential treatment. I think it's starting the 24th, if I'm correct. And they're starting out with 15, and I think five weeks. So that'll be starting. And I guess for what Helen and Mel was talking about, for sure we need a detox that goes into a residential program, but it doesn't have like an ongoing intake date. So it doesn't have to start 2 weeks down the road or 6 weeks. There's an intake process that's going on all the time. And that goes into, hopefully can get into what we already have, are those rooms, those apartments that are addictions and mental health. So that's the continuum of care that I've always wished for. And I think that will be excellent down here. And I'm not sure about the other question regarding getting turned away. I don't know if it was Native Horizons or if it was one of our departments on that one. Thank you.
Thank you. So that then sums up. Audrey, you're gonna have the last comment.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Whatever you want to call it, detox center, there has to be room for our people to, first of all, get an assessment so that you know what you're dealing with. Figure out what types of drugs they're on. And they have to have a place to go where it's safe for them and to get clean, and then maybe go into our treatment center. So yeah.
Thank you. And so with that is all the items we have. Helen, you have an addition?
I just have one more question. Can we get some information on a drug strategy? Because we haven't heard too much about that. I know there's a drug strategy being taking place out there.
Greg just updated us last week, I want to say. So Greg, over
Did
to
ya?
you.
Yeah, we're having a drug strategy session, September 27th in the evening at I believe it's at the community hall. We'll be looking at, yes, all of the subjects that were discussed today. And I'll be working with social, with our band reps. And we'll be actually sending a delegation to visit the RAM clinic in Toronto that's specifically for Indigenous patients in the Toronto or Ontario region. So we'll be looking at how patients navigate through from immediate care through detox all the way through the transitional periods. And we're going to see how that will, how that model can be either used here or somehow parts of that model can be used with our facilities that we have. We are lacking in some coordination, but with time, I think we will be able to coordinate a little bit better treatment, a little bit more comprehensive treatment from detox to transitioning into right out of the drug situations that our patients or our people are involved with. So it's a start. If there's a community, like I said, a strategy session that's going to be given out to the community, and but it's a start, and hopefully it'll progress into something a little bit more comprehensive.
Thanks for refreshing my memory. And now that I heard you talk about, I remember.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And so with that, I need someone to move to adjourn. Moved by Sherry Lynn. I have a seconder. Seconded by Greg. All in favor? Alrighty. So with that, I want to thank the community for tuning in this morning. And council will be in Ottawa on Wednesday. We will be at what is it? Is it a protest? The march. A rally. In regards to C-53. Yeah, Bill C-53. And then later in the week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we will be doing walking the track. And so if any community members want to come out, there is a bus that is going to Ottawa on Wednesday. So follow up with I want to say Shirley. And then same with Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Melba and then Hazel.
Yeah, I'm just concerned. I couldn't find an article that I read the other day, if I understood the article properly, and I'm just wondering if we could hear from Christopher. Because it's my understanding on the 20th, there is a huge rally. And the article said that it's comparable to the truck rally that happened last year. And this one is to do with gender issues. As we know, the education minister, Lisi, is that his name, Audrey? Yes, certainly brought information to parents and concerning children in the school who are struggling with gender issues. And I wonder if Christopher could certainly let us know, would we be alongside this groups of people? Because I understand it's going to be really huge. Please inform us, Christopher, what's happening there.
Melba, I'm happy to look into that to clarify. I'd be surprised if the two were to clash or compete with each other in that way, but I will do some digging and see what I can find out about that. And yes, you're right. It's about the provincial education minister, who is Stephen Lecce, but he's based at Queen's Park. So I will look into where exactly this other protest is going to be located exactly, and what odds there are that there would be any kind of encounter.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christopher. Hazel, did you have a comment before we adjourn?
I just wanted to ask how many counselors are going.
I believe the full council is going.
Nathan said he was driving, but I just wondered, we as a full council have to go, right?
That was my understanding.
So what are the details of the bus? Like what time do you have to be on the bus? I don't know.
Or is it 6 o'clock?
Arena, 6:30 at the arena and at the gathering place. It was 2 stops that sit on the.
Okay, so Teresa's gone to get the flyer, so then that can be put out to community, which it has, I'm assuming. Daryl, you can chime in anytime. And so it is the bus departs at 6:30 in the morning. Pickups are at the Shwegan Arena and then the gathering place. So if you want to sign up, then you can email or call 6 Nations here. So busing, lunch and water will be provided free of charge.
What are the numbers for the community call?
The number is 445-2201. Yeah. So Daryl, is this going out?
It already has, I believe. I think we might do one more as well.
I've never seen that thing.
Okay.
You're going on the bus, too. Your communication. Oh, sorry.
What? You're two. Okay, so this will go out to community and well, Daryl has said it already has. And I know because people have actually asked, but other than that, we just need to continue to share. I don't know how many buses that are full at this time, but that's something our administration can follow up with. Audrey, and then we will adjourn today's meeting. Okay, Daryl, do we have more information on Walk the Track, which is starting on Friday? Okay. Greg, did you want to speak to that or, because I don't need you to walk around? Okay, thank you. And so the Walk the Track, which I hope that individuals that came to our annual general meeting in August seen, actually they got a glimpse of the drone show that will be happening. And so what the Walk the Track is, it's a friendship walk and a social gathering that's going to start on Friday. And so we will be walking from Fergus, St. Jacobs, Waterloo to Brantford to Cayuga and Port Maitland. So everybody is encouraged to attend. And if you want to register, you can register. Too bad I can't put this on the screen. So, or if you have if you have questions, you can actually call directly to the administration 519-445-2201. So Friday, we start at 10 a.m. and we will be in Fergus. And then we will have a social gathering. And then we walk from St. Jacobs and then have another social gathering. And so over the 3 days, we will be at each different stop and meeting with community members and bringing awareness to the Haldimand Track and our history at Grand River. And so I just have Melba and Greg who want to elaborate.
I guess the community should understand that the bus will go from the, for the programming. Right? They'll stop at each one of these areas for the presentations.
Okay, I'm going to defer this to Tammy. Tammy, can you tell me the logistics of the bus for Walk the Track?
Yeah, the 6 different sites that will be, what we'll be targeting, starting with, up here in Fergus, there will be an opening session. Yes, there will be a bus to transport you from one site to the other. The thing is it's on 3 separate days. So there'll be 2 sites on 3 separate days, and the walk isn't very long. It's only a kilometer or so. But there will be some discussions and information that's shared along the way. And so we'll be starting in Fergus up near Dundalk. So in each day, you will be transported to the next section of the walk. So there are 2 in each day, Fergus and St. Jacobs on the first day, Waterloo and Brantford on the second day. And of course, the last day is the Cayuga and Port Maitland. And there'll be, so the walk isn't extensive. It's only a short walk. And then you'll be transported to the next site. So a lot of the information can be good, and we encourage everyone to sign up, even counselors to sign up using the site 6milesdeep.ca. So you can get a lot of details from 6milesdeep.ca, and that will take you through the whole section from day 1, day 2, and day 3. And that's Friday, September 22nd, the 23rd, and the 24th. And it'd be we're encouraging everyone to sign up on online. Again, 6milesdeep.ca.
Thank you, Greg. Audrey, you have a comment?
Okay, where did they catch the bus in the first place, Greg? You're not expecting everybody to drive to Fergus to catch a bus, are you?
Actually, yeah, maybe Taylor can elaborate.
Hello, my understanding is that registrants will be getting an email this week with exact information on when and what time for the bus to be caught up on. So if you register, you will be sent that. And then I think the website will be updated accordingly with that information as well.
Okay, we really need that information out today because the event is on Friday, and so I think if we want our community members to be supporting and walking with us, then they need to plan as well. Helen?
Yeah, Audrey's question wasn't answered. Do we have to drive to Fergus to get on the bus?
And Taylor advised she's gonna get us more information,
Oh,
and that's what I said.
couldn't tell
Hopefully
what
it's
she was
today.
saying.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, we have a lot of events that are happening, and we just hope that community is aware, and we know we need to work more diligently on getting this information out. So with that, Sherry Lynn has adjourned the meeting. Do I have a seconder? Oh, Greg, okay. Yeah, already, all in favor? Meeting is adjourned. Already, thanks for joining us, community. Take care.